Presentation opposing House Bill 784, Trespass. The language of this bill explicitly states that state and county law enforcement will have the authority to enforce trespass laws on all state and county-owned land. But what can be understood from the obscurity of the language is the regulation of space and indigenous bodies through criminalization and removal. What is purposely concealed is the power to control space and kanaka when necessary for capitalistic ventures. And although a balance of interest is meant to be weighed with no favor for one side over the other, many of the cases we have studied show a clear disregard for the rights of Native Hawaiians to access, gathering, religious custom, and subsistence practices. Therefore, the framers' intent can be understood without them openly indicating their true objective, which is to immediately remove, subsequently criminalize, and ultimately erase Native Hawaiian existence. In addition, Max Otani, who is the director of the Department of Public Safety, vaguely asserts this bill will not disrupt or interrupt current joint trespass operations with local law enforcement, which kind of tells me that there's no need for the bill other than criminalizing Native Hawaiians. The impact to Native Hawaiians and our descendants is destructive. It further severs Kanako iwi from ancestral spaces and criminalizes peaceful protections of areas of great importance, which could very well be the entire Pai'aina. As was aforementioned, it allows for the forced removal of displaced persons and the subsequent criminalization of individuals who once had the right to lie down and sleep by the roadside without fear of harm. Instead, a narrative has been created to give this bill and bills like it the justification they need to pass. And that narrative, created by the colonial state through discriminatory laws and policies, seeks to label Kanaka as dangerous and unsanitary. In fact, back in September of 2020, a bill was proposed by Ann Kobayashi which sought to portray our home free ohana as a dangerous obstruction to the public, a dehumanizing effort to gain public support. And here's some examples of the language within that bill. Article 8 of that bill states, current laws that prohibit obstruction of sidewalks do not adequately address the safety hazards, disruption, and deterrence to pedestrian traffic caused by individuals sitting or lying on public sidewalks. Then there's a proposed amendment of Section 2, Chapter 29 of Revised Ordinances of Honolulu, which states no person shall sit or lie on a public sidewalk, tarp, towel, sheet, blanket, sleeping bag, etc. So in addition to these fallacious and disastrous statements, Governor Ige attempted in 2019 to create an image of a riotous, disruptive, and unmanageable group of drug-addicted Hawaiians to further his attempt to sway the public support away from the protection of our sacred mauna. And because there is an assumed criminality that plagues people of color, especially our Black and brown relatives, these types of tactics can prove devastating and oftentimes fatal for our people. If we look at the destructive nature of the proposed criminalization of Kanako iwi, we'll see that Native Hawaiians suffer from systemic racism. It is an institutionalized racism through policy and law that leads to discrimination against Hawaiians in the criminal justice system, healthcare, education, housing, and much more. And if we look at the criminal justice system in specific, one can better understand the devastation caused by such policies. In fact, Native Hawaiians experience overrepresentation in prisons and in our homeless population. For example, on Oahu alone, we comprise 43% of the prison population and 39% of the displaced population, or homeless. We suffer high incarceration rates, a progression of outcomes at every stage of the criminal justice system, as well as relocation to out-of-state facilities where cultural practice is nearly non-existent. It is a deliberate severance at the hands of the fake state meant to control and subjugate Native Hawaiians, which seems to be a favorite pastime of the colonial state.